Hey, what's up, everybody? This is the show. I wanted to do a live stream. I enjoy doing these, and hopefully, you all sort of enjoy watching them. This isn't going to be a long, like 2 hour thing. I just wanted to talk a little bit more in depth about what's going on. There's a lot of stuff shaking with Sony right now, and I wanted to kind of cover that, and especially in regards to what they did yesterday. Absolutely did a fantastic thing with locking down Insomniac Games. That's one of the ones that I had wished that Microsoft locked down a long time ago. Let's just be real. That is a class act developer, and they are absolutely one of the biggest developers around. So to see them get scooped up by Sony, I mean, I know that they mostly did Sony games anyway, but the fact that they were scooped up by Sony the way they were absolutely is impressive. And I got to be honest, I would assume that Sony paid more money for Insomniac Games than Microsoft did for pretty much every new studio that they bought. And the reason being is Insomniac is at a high point for their studio, right? Coming off of 14 million Spider-Man sales. They're obviously, if you're playing the stock market, they're at a high point to buy. But Sony felt the need to buy them because you didn't want some other company to come in there and swoop out and buy them instead. So if you look at the companies that Microsoft bought, they bought them at low points. Undead Labs, low point, Double Fine, low point, In Exile, low point. All these studios that they bought were at pretty much a low point. Even Playground Games, who I like a lot as an acquisition and a studio, they've only made racing games. And when they pitched their idea for this open world RPG to other publishers, nobody wanted it because they've only done racing games. So now we see sort of what's going on and where all this is coming from, and how smart it was of Sony to actually go out there and go out there and pick up such a talented studio. So that's very cool. As you guys filter in, please do me a favor and share this out to various social medias or whatever. I would appreciate that. Definitely means a lot. And I kind of want to definitely get started and just talk about what we're seeing at a Sony. So as we sort of go along with this, I want to talk about the Insomniac pickup. I think that was huge. Clearly, Insomniac Games, one of the biggest developers, independent developers that are left out there. They've done incredible things with various different games. As you guys know, the Spyro series, they've done Ratchet and Clank. They've done a ton of those Ratchet and Clank games. They've done the Resistance series. All three of those, I think those are really underrated games. The only game that I think that they've done that maybe wasn't a stellar game was that Fuse game, which that game looked nothing like it looked like originally when they showed it off, and it was like an EA published game or whatever. But they did Sunset Overdrive, which is now owned by Sony as well. Apparently, according to them, they can't put the first game on PlayStation even now, but the sequel could definitely be on PlayStation if they decide to use it. Would they? I don't know. I mean, I think that'd be kind of a thumb in the eye for Microsoft, but it could be something that they look into in the future. So that would be definitely something that's going on. What's up, Mega Cloud? So here's the thing. I am going to talk about this Remedy stuff. There is a lot of rumors heating up right now. Before anybody jumps on me and goes, man, you're just being, whatever, fear-mongering or whatever. Remember, the people said the same thing. You can look back on my channel. In March, I did a video about Sony buying out Insomniac Games. There was a huge rumor. And I don't think I listed a source because it was something that I had heard. And it was just kind of going around that I've heard from a few people. And I was like, this is picking up a lot of steam. Sony might be trying to pick up, Insomniac Games. And I did a video about it, and people said I was full of it, and no source and blah blah blah. You're wrong again. CG blah blah blah. And then look at this, right? It takes a certain amount of months for these things to go through, by the way. So when they actually sign some of this stuff and then it goes out, now we know that it was indeed getting pushed through at that particular time, and that wasn't the only one. Now, when it comes to Remedy Entertainment, there's plenty of different things going on here, okay? First of all, Sam Lake was one of the first people to congratulate Insomniac yesterday. Second of all, Yoshida from Sony actually went over there and visited the Remedy Studios recently. Why would you do that? I don't think you see Phil Spencer or Matt Booty going to Activision and visiting for Call of Duty or something like that. So there's more to it than just, oh, well, we got Control coming to PS4. This is their first Remedy game coming to PS4. So let's go like support it or whatever. Nothing to do with that. And so Remedy is a quality. They do a lot of those single player narrative driven games. Phil Spencer, as you guys know, gave back the Alan Wake publishing rights to Remedy, which is something you do right before you sell out. You sell your, so they probably had to do that, and they might even had to do that with Sunset Overdrive. I don't know yet, but that looked very, very good. It looks like if I were Sony, I would probably wait until maybe E3, because you give yourself some time. You put together some kind of trailer, CGI or something, and what you do is you show off Alan Wake 2 at E3 next year. That's a moment that I think would resonate with people and fans and gamers, that, oh, here's the game that Phil Spencer didn't believe in, didn't like, and again, this goes back, what I'm talking about, to February, March, the same timeline as this Insomniac thing, the same timeline where Sony said they were looking to go after some new studios. So you can hate me, or you can dislike me, or dislike my content, or what I say, or whatever, but the main thing is I've been right quite a bit with a lot of this stuff, and my being right goes back a long time. And if I'm wrong, then I have no problem admitting that I'm wrong. But it does look like there's some kind of deal going on here, and that this studio is one of the bigger studios left, and they do the type of games that Sony absolutely loves to do. And I think this would be a very smart thing for them to do in the future as well. So hit the like button if you guys don't mind. Hit the do it, all that kind of stuff. Let me see. I see that Gerald Riviera says, "Crap, please comment on Xbox buying DMC5 for Game Pass, which is cheaper than investing in a new AAA IP." Listen, dude, the problem is, right, that game is like $25-30 right now, and it's a multiplat, right? Like, I own it on Xbox One X, and it looks great, and it's a great deal for Xbox owners, to be sure. Trust me when I say that. It is definitely something great for Xbox owners. I think that's cool. We're gonna get this game it's awesome. It's a fun game, but it's nothing to buy an Xbox over. That's the problem. Like, Microsoft is building up their service, right? And maybe one day this service will be on other platforms or whatever. I don't really know the logics or the thinking behind it, but that's not really a reason to buy an Xbox, in my opinion. Oh, I can play Devil May Cry 5 for $1. It's not like it's going to be in there forever, but Microsoft supposedly paid $19 million for this, for the right to put this in Game Pass. So I think it's funny. So I do have an article on that. I can actually talk about this. So according to Video Game Chronicles, Capcom receives a mystery IP royalty payment of $18.74 million during its fiscal quarter ended June 30th. Capcom booked a $19 million royalty one-off from deals for their IP and digital contents. And then this says, did they license their IP to Microsoft? What do you think? So apparently this is for digital content business. We did not disclose the details, but because it has some confidentiality in addition about this income, it has been taken into plan. So this, it looks like something that has to do with Devil May Cry 5 and Microsoft paying them a certain amount of money to get that into Game Pass. I think that's cool, but think about this. More and more as we go into the future, if you look at who Stadia has partnered with, there's no EA, there's no Activision, there's like some of these big companies are absent, and this will be the continuing trend for stuff like Game Pass, right? Like, you notice no Ubisoft games in Game Pass, no EA games in Game Pass, no Activision games in Game Pass. The three biggest publishers are absent. More and more of these big-time publishers and games are going to avoid Game Pass because they're doing their own thing, right? EA Access, Ubisoft has their own thing. Activision, they might do their own thing in the future, but again, their biggest game is Call of Duty. Why would they put Call of Duty in Game Pass? It makes no sense. That's what makes them most of their money, and it sells consistently. This is a big reason why I tell people don't expect Nintendo or Sony to do a Game Pass situation in the future anytime soon, because their exclusive games actually sell a ton, and so it doesn't make sense for them to do that. So yeah, that's very interesting to me. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I actually think that it's actually pretty cool that Microsoft put that in there. But again, this game is already like $10-15. It's not exactly a big deal in my opinion. So yeah, it's awesome, and I think that that's cool. And again, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I think Game Pass has a certain type of quality to it, and it's definitely a value. It's not. I have it because I paid $1 for it, and I already had gold till like 2022, so it made sense to pay that $1 to get it. And like I'll be able to play Gears of War 5 4 days early, like the Ultimate Edition, like I would have paid for $100 for $1. So for me, it works out. This will be the first Gears of War I won't get. I don't have to buy Halo next year. I'm not planning on getting a Scarlet day one anyway, so I can just play these games on my Xbox One X. And to me personally, I'm going to ride that Xbox One X until I can't ride it anymore because I want to get my $500 for it, and I feel like I haven't even got $50 for it yet, to be honest with you. So when people ask me, do you feel the Xbox One X is worth it? I don't. I'm looking for some kind of really killer exclusive, something that really showcases what the console can do. And unfortunately, we haven't had that. Maybe Gears of War will be that, but something just tells me that's just going to be more Gears of War, even though I was pretty excited about that trailer that they showed yesterday. That should have been the one that they showed at E3, in my opinion. And so, yeah, I am a little bit bummed by that. But at the end of the day, Microsoft is Microsoft, and they're going to do kind of what they want to do. And, for me personally, I think it's all good. Spider-Man has sold over 13.2 million copies within 10 months. That's way more, by the way, than a lot of multiplats. I'm just throwing that out there. A lot of people like to throw this at me. Oh, multiplats, blah, blah, blah. These are different things that they sell better than exclusives, which isn't really true, because even a game like Madden on 3 platforms doesn't sell as much as Spider-Man does. So that goes to show you what you need to know. Even the stuff like Battlefield 5 didn't sell as much as Spider-Man did. Big games tend not to sell as much as a lot of these Sony exclusives. So it's really impressive to see exactly what's going on with a lot of this stuff. So what we've got to see in the future is that these studios are going to lock down different things, and for what we're going to be seeing in the future. This is like, again, when I talk about what's going on with Remedy Entertainment and what's going on with Microsoft, and as you guys join in, please hit the like button, share it out. I would definitely appreciate it. Where there's smoke, there's fire. I keep on saying this, and shout out to JD Gamer, because he was sending me some links as well, kind of tracing back some of this stuff, what's been going on. Push Square was again talking about the different things in terms of what's going on. Again, some of this stuff is speculation on my part, but it does push back, and so why not do a video on the rumor, at least talking about Remedy Entertainment? Because what a big shock that would be if we actually saw Remedy go up there, Sam Lake, on Sony's stage at E3 next year and announce something like an Alan Wake 2 an Alan Wake 2 on the platform. I think that that's a big moment. Okay, so check this out. There's been very few big moments like that at E3 that I can remember. One of the biggest ones was the 360 era, when you had Microsoft bring up the Final Fantasy people, and they're talking about Final Fantasy coming to the Xbox 360 or Xbox for the first time ever. That was like a huge kind of wow moment. Another wow moment, I'll give Xbox the props for it, is when you had Ted Price from Insomniac Games, who had only done pretty much Sony games his entire career, was up on Xbox's stage, and they showed off Sunset Overdrive. I think that would be a huge moment for Sony, and if Sony is smart, and it does look like there is kind of something going on here. Again, also, Remedy Entertainment visited with Naughty Dog, and there's also documentation of this. So why would they visit a first-party Sony studio? I don't think it works that way unless you're part of that family or you're intending to be. So there's a lot of information sort of backing this up, and as I'm collecting this, I'll link it in the description below after this video is done, so you guys don't got to worry about that. But I've been getting steady more and more of this. This would be an absolute megaton for Sony, and again, these are things that Sony really are compelling, and they really get people excited. I saw more excitement from the Sony crowd yesterday and more jealousy from the Xbox crowd yesterday than I have almost this entire generation, and that's because Sony did it right. Sony didn't save. Couldn't they have announced this at E3, right? Couldn't they have shown off, they could have shown off some multiplats and, The Last of Us 2 and Ghost of Tsushima again, and Days Gone again, or what? Not Days Gone, but you know, they could have showed off some of this stuff, some of the VR stuff, and announced a studio like Insomniac, and you know, they could have done that. But you know what they did? They went back and they actually announced this via Twitter, and that won them Gamescom. Think about that. They didn't make a big production out of it. They didn't do it at a PSX event. What they did was they come out and they announced it via Twitter, and people went nuts. That's absolutely incredible. Oh, Nine Live says Remedy is overrated. Well, I mean, I guess that's your opinion, but isn't it funny how Xbox fans were like, Sunset Overdrive is awesome, and then as soon as Insomniac signs with, you know, with Sony, everybody's like, oh, Sunset Overdrive was overrated. Like, come on, man. Why is that the truth? You know what I'm saying? And before anybody goes out there trying to go, well, Crap's saying for sure that Sony's buying Remedy Entertainment. Again, I've stated my case and said you have to take these things with a grain of salt. Simply put, we don't know yet. But again, where there's smoke, there's fire. And I feel confident enough in what I've heard and what's been going on behind the scenes since February, March, that this is like a foregone conclusion. And I think that that's a very smart thing for Sony to do. It's a thumb in the eye for Microsoft if you think about it. You know, this was a franchise in Alan Wake and Quantum Break that are very heavily known with Xbox, and now you're never going to see sequels to them, and the company that made them is going to be signing with Sony, so I think that's going to be huge. Hey, can you guys get me over 100 likes? I would appreciate that. We are very close. Everybody wanted Quantum Break. Uncle Phil's Multiplat Mom. We all wanted Quantum Break 2. Nobody's gonna. Who would make it now? We don't even know. We don't even know who would make it. So, I think that that franchise is dead and gone. And apparently, if you guys, I don't know if you did this, but somebody DM'd me yesterday and was telling me, or maybe it was just a tweet. You know, somebody told me that they watched a Sam Lake interview on IGN regarding Control with how Quantum Break went, and I'm not sure if this is more recent or not. But Sam Lake went on to explain that as far as he was concerned, he wasn't allowed to write the Quantum Break TV series. Microsoft wouldn't let him. He had to keep flying back and forth for approval and stuff like that. So it was a real big hassle, and I think that's why things ended pretty poorly between Remedy and Microsoft, is he didn't have the control, quote-unquote, that he wanted or needed for that game to be great. And that's unfortunate, because I think that game could have been a really big franchise for Microsoft had they given a little bit more control. And that's also partly why their next game was called Control, because they have complete control over it. And I think that Sony does a good job of going out there and letting like these developers kind of do their thing. So I know Microsoft is sort of known for that as well now, though. We're not going to change what these developers are doing, but at the same time, you know, we have Microsoft where they kind of let everybody down with their exclusives outside of Gears, Forza, and Halo anyway. Now Microsoft isn't sitting still either. They will be purchasing 2 studios close to Sony, with one being Ready at Dawn. JD Gamer, I've heard that Microsoft was going to buy some studios, and Ready at Dawn did just move into a new big studio, and I don't know what that's all about. But what makes you think Microsoft is going to get them and not Sony? Like, they have way more history with Sony than they do Microsoft. And I think if Microsoft is going to get a studio, they need to pick up a studio that's really, really big, like a AAA studio, something that's not an IP factory, but that would do something really good for them in the long run, because I feel like that's what they need. You can't have like Coalition does Gears, 343 does Halo, Turn 10 does Forza, Playground Games does Forza, but they also do, it looks like they're going to be doing Fable. So they're going to be stuck doing Fable and Forza. So they're going to be an IP factory too. That leaves very few big studios that Microsoft owns that aren't an IP factory that are going to be able to get out there and do something specifically and do something different to where it's going to be an impressive type situation. So hopefully we can see something like that in the future. I would love to see you know, something from one of their big studios. But again, I get called a fearmongerer, right? That's me, Crapgamer the fearmongerer, when I bring up that these studios are locked into multi-plat deals and are just starting, some of them are just starting something new, and that we won't see anything from them until 2024. And, you know, that's a shame. I get called a fearmonger, though. That's the funny part. And I'm not calling anybody out in particular. That's the That's the Xbox defendant. And look, I do a podcast with Xbox people all the time. Xbox, like that guy, man. I've been friends with him for years. Great guy, but he's unabashedly an Xbox fan and is no doom and gloom, and I can respect that, just like I can respect anybody else that has that kind of opinion. But for me personally, I don't have that opinion anymore, because it's pretty clear that Microsoft just honestly doesn't seem to really care that much about their hardcore console base anymore. So, it's just one of those things where I have to sort of go out there and do that. You know what I mean? I have to go out there and talk about how I feel. And I know that some people don't like it, but at the end of the day, it's just kind of my opinion or whatever. This is something that people get lost a lot in the translation. All this stuff is entertainment, it's opinions. And if people don't like it, I mean, they can not watch or whatever, and that I'm fine with that as well. I'm very excited by what Sony is doing. They are doubling down. Also, I wanted to point out that today, a lot of people were running with this whole Sony open to PC versions of PlayStation exclusives, okay? This is something people are coming at me with today. I will address this. So, Sean Lading says some first-party titles may need to lean into a wider install base. Okay? So, you take that as what? They're going to put Last of Us 2 on PC. They're going to put, God of War 2 or Spider-Man 2 on PC. No. So, according to this, this is exactly what Sean Layden said. And I got to say, I love that he said this, and I have no problem with this, because this is something that Phil Spencer would never say. He says, we must support the PlayStation platform. That is non-negotiable. Non-negotiable. Wouldn't you guys love to hear Phil Spencer say, we must support the Xbox console and it's non-negotiable? Like, I would love to hear him say that. Instead, it's PC this, it's mobile that, it's streaming this, it's mobile that. So, yeah, like, I'm not impressed with what Phil Spencer says. Like, I like what Sean Layden's saying. Even though I don't think that he's much of a gamer, I at least think he gets it that PlayStation needs exclusives. So he says, we will see in the future some titles coming out of my collection of studios which may need to lean into a wider install base. So this was a Bloomberg article, and the context of this was referring to PlayStation games not appearing on Nintendo or Microsoft consoles, but to do PC versions of quote-unquote multiplayer titles designed with that platform in mind. So people are going to jump on this quote and go, well, look, Sony's doing exactly what Microsoft's doing. They're putting all their titles on PC too. No. Multiplayer titles. It would not behoove Sony to put their single-player exclusives on PC. Those games would get completely, people would just pirate them anyway. For the most part, I know some people would buy them, but I'm just saying it wouldn't behoove them. He's talking about multiplayer games, like this Predator game that they showed off. That's a multiplayer game. These MMOs, what was it like that? H1Z1. These type of games where it makes sense to do some type of crossplay and do a wider audience where it doesn't matter and there's not a competitive advantage. That's exactly what he's talking about. He makes it clear, but then it was funny to see so many Xbox fans try to swing it to where it wasn't something else, or it was something else altogether, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. How can people not understand what's going on with this? Like, it's pretty clear to me that he's talking about, because he mentions it, multiplayer games. So I think that that's very much a clear-cut case of exactly what he wants to say, and he says exactly what he means. JD Gamer says, the irony of all this is that Microsoft would have given Remedy and Insomniac the same deals they gave Ninja Theory 2 years ago. There is a good chance they'd be at Microsoft. The problem is, JD, is maybe 2 years ago, but right now Insomniac is at a high point in what they're worth. So they're coming off a 14, 15, that Spider-Man game, The Sky's the Limit. You're talking about, it came out in holiday 2018, and so it's not even a year old yet, and it's already at like 14 million copies, and they're about to release the Game of the Year version with all the DLC with it. That game could push 20 million easy. They're going to bundle it, I'm sure. It's going to be a big holiday seller, but I would assume Sony's paid a big penny to get that studio. And let me be clear, Insomniac Games, as we cross over 400 people watching, please hit the like button, share it out. I really appreciate you guys coming out here. But, 9 lives, stop with the fear-mongering. Oh, please, man, there's no fear-mongering here. There's just facts. I'm just being honest with you. The ones that are fear-mongering, it's funny, okay? The ones that say I fear-monger are the ones that are going to be out there telling you that Sony's going to do the same thing with their studios and use this article as a quote-unquote source that it's happening, when it's very clear that he's talking about some of these multiplayer games like Predator and H1Z1 and things like that. Definitely not the first-party games, because he says it very clearly that they need exclusives for the PlayStation platform, and those are going to stay exclusive. So that's just exactly what I'm trying to talk about. It has nothing to do with fear-mongering or anything like that. No, look, Nine Lives is entitled to his opinion, man. I appreciate him coming out here. I'm just saying that for as far as I'm concerned right now, what Sony was able to accomplish with getting Insomniac and possibly getting Remedy, which is the big rumor going right now, I feel like that's something that a lot of people are going to look at as like these pivotal moments going into next generation. When you look at the studios that Sony has locked up right now, they have some incredible studios. You have Sucker Punch, you have Insomniac Games, you have Sony Santa Monica, you have Naughty Dog, the biggest one around. How about House Marquee? Sony, they're making their first AAA. Listen, I've heard about House Marquee, and I was going to do that in this title as well, but I can only fit so much. House Marquee is another studio that I believe Sony is going to buy, and there's mounting evidence for that. But it's one of those studios that a lot of people probably wouldn't care. That's a studio that I feel can do some growth and stuff, but they're more like, I know they're doing their first AAA, but they've done mostly AA stuff. But I do feel like they're probably going to get, they're probably going to get that big AAA game out there at some point, and who knows what it's going to be. I just feel like when you look at some of the quality stuff, Insomniac Game has 2 studios, maybe even 3 different teams. So they have 2 big teams and a smaller team that does like VR stuff. Now imagine this, man. Insomniac Games is going to be doing PlayStation VR games. They're going to be doing new Spider-Man. They're going to continue with Ratchet and Clank. Maybe they'll bring back the Resistance series. I would love to see Resistance remastered and put that out on like the PlayStation 5, or maybe do it Legacy on PlayStation 4 next year or something like that. It probably wouldn't take much work, but that was a very, very good multiplayer series from Sony last generation. So Blue Point Games, the problem is Blue Point Games, they just mostly do remakes and remasters. They're a good studio, but honestly, have they ever done their own thing? I think that's really what could be there. Okay, so the 1985, he says Sony feeling the heat of Microsoft buying studios. Listen, I would say that that's where competition comes into play. As much as people go, well, there's no competition there, and Phil tries to make it look like there's no competition, there's clearly competition there, and there's clearly going to continue to be competition there. So Microsoft can sit there and claim that, hey, there's no competition, and, we're going to do our own thing, and we don't care what Sony's doing. They're our partners, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, what it comes down to is there is competition. You can continue to go back and look at the competition. Sony does PlayStation Plus, gives people free games with that. That forces Microsoft to go out and do games with gold, right? When one console goes on sale, the other goes on sale. If one of them has a sale for games, the other one has a sale for games. Like, this is the thing. When Microsoft has Halo, Sony wants to have a Halo killer. When Gran Turismo is the big thing, Microsoft wanted a GT killer. And then it goes back and forth like that. You want an Uncharted killer or a Gears of War killer. Like, you want these different games, and they're trying to one-up each other. And that's what it's all about. So people right away, I'm not saying Xbox fans should panic. You have 15 studios. I'm saying that a lot of those studios are making smaller titles strictly for Game Pass, and so they aren't really much to be super excited about, in my opinion. But I do feel like there's going to be stuff there, but eventually, it's like 2024, and with Microsoft's way that they actually go out there and refuse to talk about anything in regards to what's coming down the pipe, that's not going to look good for them next year when Sony possibly brings out Remedy on the stage and they showing off a trailer for an Alan Wake 2, because even a CGI trailer is something that could be used as a hype and propaganda to get people excited. Now look, if they like, Remedy has a couple of teams, maybe they're slowly working on an Alan Wake 2. They have an engine already, and look at Control only took 3 years to make. They could have an Alan Wake ready. If they already started it now, it could be ready in 2022, right? So you could show it off next year and you'd be fine. and people would get excited. And now that's what it's all about. Microsoft, on the other hand, they completely refuse to show any kind of roadmap whatsoever. They don't do it. This is why Sony continues to like really just kind of kick their butts in every aspect. Not only that, but on a day when Sony locks up Insomniac Games in order to get big AAA exclusive for their platform, on that same day, what does Microsoft do, you guys and girls? Microsoft, they give away their highest rated new IP this generation in Ori and the Blind Forest. Now, that's just a AA game, but Microsoft, I think, either owns the IP or owns the publishing rights. So, with that being said, on the day where Sony locks up the biggest independent studio around for exclusive content, they lock them up. You have Microsoft giving away their best new exclusive IP of this generation, their highest rated anyway. Even though it's just a AA, Ori's a great game. It is, right? They put that on the Nintendo Switch. I don't care if you think Nintendo's competition or not. You're making your console less relevant. We know that the sequel will come to the Nintendo Switch at some point, right? So maybe somebody that loves that series would pick up an Xbox or something, and now they won't. There's no need to wait it out. That's what I say. Like, wait out. If I'm a Halo fan or a Gears of War fan or a Forza fan, my advice to you is wait it out for Microsoft to start publishing their stuff on PlayStation next gen. Because, in my opinion, I feel like that's going to happen. Just look at how quickly Microsoft pivot away from what they're able to do this generation. How many times did they switch on a dime, right? Look at the original Xbox One reveal, DRM, can't flip a switch, all this kind of stuff, to what? Games. We want our fans to have this and feel like first-class citizens and exclusives. And, now it's like, oh, well, we don't want to show stuff too far out. We canceled our games. We care about multiplats now and how great they run. Like, they didn't care about the multiplats and how great they run at the beginning of the generation. It was all about Connect and casuals and all this kind of stuff. And now it's like crossplay, multiplats playing best, and and doing things for people who aren't even Xbox fans. Hey, put your games on everything. Like, that's not indicative of growing your fan base and in your install base of Xbox. I realize that a lot of companies do that, and I feel like Sony will probably do like some kind of streaming stuff too, and I don't care about that stuff. But what I do care about is the lack of movement and the lack of transparency by Microsoft and what they're talking about. So hit the like button. Maybe we can get up to 150. I would appreciate it. Rare being stuck on multiplayer only games is a sign of rotten leadership. Yeah, like, why is I appreciate that, King 405. He says, I respect you. I don't get that very often, but I do appreciate it. Captain Crunch says Rare's being stuck on multiplayer only. Yeah, why is Rare Studios, who are known for incredible platformers and incredible IP, why are they doing games that are multiplayer only, right? Why are they doing that? I don't, like, people go, well, Phil gives them the they could do whatever they want, okay? If they can truly do whatever they want, I'm sure they maybe would want to do something with some single player aspect to it, right? Like, I like Sea of Thieves. I'm not going back to that game, and the reason why I'm not going back to that game is quite simple. There's no way to fully disable the crossplay with PC, and they cheat. There's a lot of them that cheat on there. I'm not saying everyone cheats, but I'm saying there is a lot of that, and there's different sites and stuff. And by the way, there's different sites and stuff like that for Gears of War 5 already as well popping up. So there's going to be different hacks and stuff for that. And it's going to suck because we can't disable that in ranked. So when that happens, people are going to be like, oh, man, that sucks. And then Microsoft's going to be like, we're working on a fix. And then, 6 months later, when nobody's on the game, they'll see the mistakes that they made. I just hope they see the mistakes before Halo Infinite, because I have a feeling that they're going to want to do crossplay with Halo Infinite, and they're going to do it just like they did with Gears of War 5, which is play ranked. You can turn it off if you want. But if you play anything other than ranked, you're not going to be able to disable crossplay, because they're going to say, what's it matter? Who cares? And I think if you play Halo, you realize that super hardcore gamers play ranked. And if you're not great at it, like me, you play unranked, because it's a little more fair and kind of, casual experience. Like, I'm not great at Halo. I admit that I suck at it. But I enjoy it, and I don't want to get my butt kicked by someone with a keyboard and mouse. So I'm waiting for Microsoft to screw that up, which they inevitably will, and, not giving people the option to turn it off. Because look at Fortnite. They give you the option to turn off crossplay completely, or you can be matched by input device. So controller versus controller, or keyboard and mouse versus keyboard and mouse. Call of Duty is going to do that same thing. They give you the option to disable it, or you can be matched up by input device. That's the proper way to do it. So it is kind of weird that Microsoft, with their own first party, can't get it right, even though they swore up and down they would get it right, and they end up not really doing that. So that is a bit of a shame or whatever, as far as I'm concerned. So, Neo Geo says, what is SOT? That's Sea of Thieves. That's Sea of Thieves. Ryan Nelson, hold on. You probably didn't think I'd read this. Let's see. He says, none of this matters. Just let people play what they want. I'm only buying the next Xbox because you're telling me not to. Hey, if you want to waste your money, dude, feel free to waste your money. I'm not telling anybody what to get or what they shouldn't get. If you ask me my opinion, I'll give my opinion on it. But if you want to buy an Xbox and spend $600 for a console with no exclusives, that's on you. That's on you. Primitive Meat says, crap, when the term fearmonger is being used to label those who want better and don't coddle, that is wrong. Listen, I really have to agree with you right there. I have to agree 100% with that. Mr. Twister says, Insomniac makes VR games. Stormland VR is PSVR 2. I wouldn't doubt that. Look, Sony is all in on VR. You guys know me. I'm a huge VR fan. I absolutely adore PlayStation VR. Microsoft lied to me. Phil Spencer lied to me and said we were getting VR. We didn't get VR, unfortunately. But Sony's all in on VR with the PlayStation 5 as well. So we do have that coming, and we know we're going to get. And now they have a first-party studio that has some incredible VR games. Stormland VR looks incredible, and it looks like we're going to be getting some more of that. Listen, the fearmonger thing. Look, I'm not taking shots at anybody when I say that. We all know that there's a handful of Xbox YouTubers, and they're fine. You know what I mean? It is what it is. I want to be kind of left to my own thing. Let them do their own thing. Whatever. It is what it is. I'm just saying, for me personally, it's like that fearmonger tag. Kind of people run with it, and they kind of make it seem like Xbox is the underdog or whatever. Xbox is not the underdog, folks. Xbox is not the underdog. They're the New England Patriots, right? They, by all counts, should be mopping the floor with everybody. They've got more money, Microsoft as a whole, not Xbox, but Microsoft as a whole has way more money than Sony and Nintendo combined by times 10. So the underdog is really Sony and Nintendo, and the fact that the underdog continues to beat Microsoft at every turn, that should really kind of lighten you up and let you understand. Like, all along, I thought Microsoft was trying to, here we are, we're just trying to be the good guys and give some good gaming, some good games to fans and stuff like that. It turns out Microsoft were the ones, they're just after like that paycheck. They're not really trying to, and I'm not saying that Sony and Nintendo aren't after a paycheck. I'm just saying that you can tell they genuinely care about the games by how great their games are. And it looks like on Microsoft's side, their studios and their exclusives, they don't care. You almost get the feeling that they don't really even care about their games. It's just a paycheck to them. They want to put out these games to put them in Game Pass or whatever, and that's the end of it. When you play a Nintendo game, a Nintendo exclusive or a PlayStation exclusive, one of their first party, you can just tell there's just so much care. There's just so much care and love put into these games, and that's not BS. That's the truth. They put in so much care and effort into these games that they're night and day differences. I get people that argue with me on Twitter that have never played a PlayStation 4 exclusive, and they want to sit there and try and tell me how State of Decay 2 is where it's at. You know what I mean? Like, dude, it's not where it's at. It's where maybe it's what you like, and that's fine. But for me personally, when you play games where it looks like the developers actually cared what they were doing, they gave a crap, there's a huge difference in the fun that you can have with those games, right? And to me, it just doesn't seem like a lot of Xbox studios care about what they're doing at all, in the least. They, like, literally, it just seems like they do not care. And I feel like that's super unfortunate because Microsoft has the money and the clout to do some incredible things within gaming if they choose to, but they fail to do so. That's really unfortunate. And yesterday was a clear example of how Sony is like ahead of what Microsoft is doing. Sony is just 2 steps ahead at every turn. Like, remember last week we saw that article where it said, what did it say? Phil Spencer's like a chess player. He's 5 moves ahead. He's not 5 moves ahead. Let's just be real. He's not 5 moves ahead. He's not. He's way behind of what Sony's doing. Like Sony, Phil doesn't even get that you have to appeal towards your fan base, right? Like you can't just shut out your console fans and pretend like they don't exist. When you watch that Gamescom stream, who was that Gamescom stream for? Right? You have some of the worst hosts that I've ever seen in my life. You brought an NBA player, right, and sat him down on your couch and revealed his low rating on NBA 2K20. And that was the most cringy thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, that's Microsoft, right? They just really do these cringy things. And I felt bad for the guy. Not only that, but that their hosts in general, it's like they bring out these people that seem like they don't know anything about video games for the most part, and they're just reading cue cards and telling like the most ridiculous jokes. They're like dad jokes. They're not funny at all. They're bad. Like that went on way too long, and they didn't have anything of significance. You know, there was literally nothing. If you don't have anything to show, then don't show anything. Don't put on a bad show and then expect people to be like, oh, well, hey, that's cool or whatever. Like, I feel like that was really just a terrible show. And not only that, the only thing that they really needed to show was that Gears of War 5 stuff. And why they didn't do that was, Rod Ferguson gave a ridiculous answer to that. So someone on Twitter asked, why didn't they show that before? And Rod's answer was something like, oh, well, it had something to do with he didn't want to get people hyped up too early, and then they forget about the game, and then you have to hype them up again, right? So basically what he's saying is doing things the way that they did with Gears 1, 2, and 3, where they actually sold a lot of copies of those games, isn't the right way to do it, but do it a completely different way because it saves money, and that's the right way to do it. Nobody's talking about Gears. Like Gears of War 5, that was a hot trailer. That was an amazing, good song. Like, it hit. The game looks great. But why would you do that, like, literally, 2 weeks out from launch? It doesn't make sense to me, and we've still seen no commercials, or at least I haven't seen any commercials on YouTube or anywhere, TV, nothing. I haven't seen any kind of commercials for this game whatsoever, so it is a little bit weird to see that when this is, like, your tentpole franchise, and you have absolutely nobody, talking about your game. Like, I think that the game's going to be good, and I think it's going to be like a mid-80s rated Metacritic game, but the fact that Microsoft chose to hide this footage, and when this would have been a big deal at E3, and would have hyped itself up all the way until launch, I feel like that was just indicative of how bad Microsoft has failed to listen this generation, and it really kind of sucks because it's probably my favorite Xbox franchise, and I just see it kind of go on the wayside. They're going to end up having to reboot it or something like that. So, and people ask me what I thought about Death Stranding. What I thought about Death Stranding is I thought that game, as far as graphically, looks like maybe it's better looking than anything on the Xbox One X for sure. As far as the gameplay, I still don't really have a clue about what it's about, but I feel like I get it that Kojima is trying to do something completely different, and I don't think this game is going to be like a huge seller or anything, but I think that this game is going to be well received, and it's going to be something that's typically weird, and I just think that it's going to be a cool game. I'm not sure who the target audience is for it, but it does look great, and I thought that trailer was pretty interesting, but I'm just not sure that it's going to be something to that I don't know. I'm not sure what to think yet. I'm not sure what to think yet. We'll have to see how that goes, but I'm kind of excited to see what goes on. Hold on. Jesse Darby says, crap, that's not going to happen. Man who already said there's going to be games to run on the Xbox and will always be on Xbox and PC. I guess you don't listen to what he said either. What are you talking about? Phil also said that we would get VR, didn't he, Jesse? Didn't also Phil say that he was open to doing a Sunset Overdrive 2 or an Alan Wake 2 if the studios wanted to? Like, I got a whole list of Phil Spencer stuff that he says. He said that in 2016 that the Phantom Dust remake was still in production. We haven't heard anything from it, so I'm going to assume that it's not. So why would I believe that what Phil Spencer said just at that particular time? I would just like to know. I am something says, how long is the Gears 5 campaign supposed to be? Okay, so I've heard just like on like normal or whatever, you're talking at like 4 to 6 hours. So I guess if you play it on like the hardcore modes or whatever, it might be a little bit more. Hey, can you guys hit the like button, please? I would appreciate it. Let's see. JD Gamer says Death Stranding looks strange. I'm keeping my money. You know what the good part is for me? There's this guy named Game Trailers on Twitter, and he made a little bit of a wager with me about Gears of War 5 Metacritic. He said if Gears of War 5 gets a 95, I'll owe him a game. If it gets less than a 95, he's going to get me Death Stranding. So I'm pretty confident that Gears of War 5 isn't going to get a 95. So I'm going to get Death Stranding for free. So I'm cool with that. And, I'm looking forward to seeing kind of what, how that works out or whatever, as far as I can see. And again, what I'm talking about with the Xbox, I'm not saying for sure that they're going to go third party. Maybe the Scarlet will surprise me and go out there and do something incredible. But just in my opinion, I'm not sure that that's actually going to happen, just due to the fact that they seem to only launch with Halo, which Halo's a good franchise, but let's be real. And I said this on Twitter yesterday. Halo is in a bad spot. Like, people looking in the know, the Master Chief Collection was an absolute disaster. It was a mess. It's still a mess. You can't even get Halo Reach out because you have a problem with putting it out on the launch Xbox One because it can't run it. So you have this continuing problem that's Halo Reach, or the Halo Master Chief Collection. You have Halo 5, which is regarded as the worst Halo in the series, the worst campaign. They did get the multiplayer much better as time went along, but that game launched bare bones multiplayer. So, yeah, it's one of those things where people, look, Halo's in a bad spot. If this one doesn't do well or isn't well received, that might be it. And the game's director just left. Those things don't add up to me being confident in the future of the franchise. So, as far as I'm concerned, Halo is in a very strange place, and I'm hoping for the best. I'm hoping it looks good. But again, Microsoft didn't do themselves any favors this past E3 by showing just a cutscene of him in a ship and doing that like that. Why, if they had some kind of trailer with great music and some great graphical gameplay, or a little bit like they did with Gears of War 5, they should have shown both of those things, and then people would have been happy with that E3. Instead, they chose like the worst things to show off for both their biggest franchises, and the fact that they have absolutely no surprises, that doesn't help things either. So that's a little bit sort of what they have to do in terms of their Death Stranding. Look, Death Stranding is probably going to score extremely well. I got to be real. Kojima gets a rub from the media, right? Like, I know there's not media bias, but the media loves Kojima, and so when you look at the Metacritic scores of Metal Gear Solid 5, it's reflective of that. If you've ever played Metal Gear Solid 5, that opening scene is fire. But after that game kind of falls off the rails, in my opinion, and it's like you have to find the cassettes to unveil the story and stuff like that. It's not as fun to me. Jesse Darby says, how would Death Stranding be a PS4 exclusive if it's going to PC? The same thing you Sony fanboy said about Xbox games going to PC. Listen, nobody cares, I don't think, about the game Xbox games going to PC. If PC is a completely different animal than console. Microsoft is actively publishing games on PlayStation and Nintendo platforms. Minecraft Dungeons, Minecraft, Ori and the Blind Forest, Super Lucky's Tale. We could see more. They're laying the breadcrumbs. Obsidian's game. I know that's not a Microsoft published game, but again, we don't know the extent of that. In Exile's games, Wasteland, Bard's Tale, those Rad just came out on PS4, I believe, and Psychonauts 2. Those are all going to PlayStation 4 as well. Even though Microsoft bought the publishing rights to Wasteland 3, they're still putting it on PS4. They bought the publishing rights to Psychonauts 2, they're still putting it on PS4. So they're definitely, putting these games on that platform. So, they like publishing. That's where the money is for them. I don't see why people find it such a stretch that they might decide to go in that route. They could even do it this way. They release a Xbox Scarlet. It doesn't sell very well, and they're going to go, you know what? We're going to keep supporting our console. We're going to keep making first-party games, but we're going to put those first-party games on PlayStation. We're going to put them on the Nintendo platforms. We're going to put them everywhere. Because if you look at what they're doing with Gears of War 5, that's already on another platform. It's a competing platform, Steam. Steam is not Microsoft's platform, okay? Steam is a competing platform, right? So Steam is to Windows Store what PlayStation is to Xbox. and Microsoft is putting their games on Steam. So if you find it unfathomable that Microsoft would put their games on PlayStation, I don't know what to say, because I just laid it out in very layman's terms what they're doing, right? If they're putting stuff on Steam, which is the competing platform for Windows, why wouldn't they put games on PlayStation, which is the competing platform for Xbox? Like, if that doesn't make sense to you, I don't know exactly what to say, to be honest with you. Like, that's as clear and concise as I can be, you know? And hopefully you guys understand that. Hopefully you guys get it. And I'm not trying to be a jerk about this. I'm not trying to be rude about it. I'm just being as honest about it as I can be. You know, Microsoft has that itch for multi-platform games. They like publishing these games. They make money from publishing a bunch of these games. So, let me see. Crap, you're still rock doing PlayStation content instead of Xbox. Listen, if there's exciting Xbox stuff, I'll talk about it too. I'm not above doing Xbox stuff. I just feel like until they start announcing some games, there's very little to be excited about on the Xbox side, right? Oh, wow. Xbox, you're giving up your highest rated new IP of the generation to Nintendo. Great. Oh, Xbox, you're giving Banjo-Kazooie to Nintendo. Like, why are the biggest announcements for Nintendo? Why are those announcements coming from Xbox? The biggest Nintendo announcements come from Xbox, and us Xbox fans can't get any kind of announcements. That's the that's sort of the thing. John says, "Oh well, dude." I would imagine anybody following him would vote for Gears, of course, right? Like, nobody, but I got to be honest, I'm a hardcore gamer and a hardcore Gears of War fan, but I'm not buying Gears of War. Why would I? I can just play it in, I can play the game inside Game Pass. That's what I'm going to do. So, well, VR is good. VR is good, but I just feel like people got to give it a chance. Like, that's one of those things where people really have got to kind of go in there and give it a chance, like you've got to try it out. The people that I know, like No Man's Sky, I'm going to review No Man's Sky VR because I feel like I can, I'm kind of in awe of it. And it's one of those things where I think people got to see it to believe it. And it's going to be hard. You can't convey it really in just seeing video. But if I'm talking about it and show people exactly how good it is and how great this platform is and how great it is to experience these worlds in VR and like space travel, like that game was made, it seems made for VR, and that is absolutely what I try to convey to people. If you play something that's like that in VR, you'll be hooked. I'm not saying you're going to play everything in VR. As much as I love VR and as many VR games as I have, I still prefer to just sit back with a big screen and a controller and play my games that way. But VR certainly is a lot of fun, and you play it with friends or your family or whatever, and you just have a good time with it. It's like this huge experience, and I think people kind of get lost in that or whatever. So hopefully it picks up next generation. But I do applaud Sony for going out there and doing something and taking a risk there, because Sony, to be honest with you, doesn't have the money that Microsoft has. And yet they've invested in this platform to give a niche platform like VR to fans, And, if you guys do like the Yakuza series, by the way, it was just announced that Yakuza 3, 4, and 5 are coming to the PlayStation 4 in a remastered collection. So if you guys like those games, which they're okay, I think that those games are okay. They're not like great or big AAA games, but I do think that they're okay, and I do think that that they certainly have an audience, but they're coming to PlayStation 4. I wouldn't expect those games on Xbox. There was a time when I maybe thought they would, but I don't think that there's enough install base on Microsoft's side to actually actively warrant them porting that over to Xbox. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So, hopefully, maybe in the future. We don't know. But, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Please hit the like button. I really do appreciate it. Let's see, dual purpose. They did a poll that represent. I'm sure if you did a poll, we've got a. Well, listen, I guess it depends on your fan base, like whoever's following you. If Phil Spencer did a poll and said, "Which one are you going to buy, Gears of War or Death Stranding?" I'm sure Gears of War would win. Just like if Sean Layden did a poll and was like, "Which one are you going to buy, Gears of War or Death Stranding?" I'm sure Death Stranding would win. Mario Heat. Well, man, yeah, you're not muted here. I don't know. Maddie B says, I think it's time to try some PSVR, thinking Black Friday deals will be there. Listen, if you can pick that thing up for $200 or less, Maddie, you do it. I can tell you a ton of great games: Blood and Truth, No Man's Sky, Resident Evil 7. There's so many good VR games that you could play, and I feel like people really need to give it a chance. It's not something that you're going to be, like I said, play all the time, but it's an experience like no other. Jesse says, crap, you're going to play Gears, and you're going to be very happy. You were happy about Sony. Just I'll get them with an announcement. Insomniac, but Ninja Theory and Obsidian are on the same level. Ninja Theory does AA games. Ninja Theory is nowhere near the level of Insomniac Games, right? Ninja Theory, look at their games. Like, Ninja Theory did Hellblade, a AA game. They did Bleeding Edge, a AA game that looks like trash. They did DMC, which people hated. I thought it was okay, but most people hated it. What have they done? Kung Fu Chaos? Like, they are not on the same level as Insomniac. Obsidian has done some good games, I guess, but, they did, a Fallout game that was well-received and a South Park game that was good. But other than that, KOTOR 2 was the worst of the two. It was super rushed and wasn't even finished when it came out. Outer Worlds looks like Fallout in space. So that's not really my jam. I'm not like Obsidian. To me, I think they're a good studio, but when will we see something from Obsidian in 2024? People are pinning their hopes on the Outer Worlds 2 being exclusive. Okay? The Outer Worlds 1 hasn't even come out yet, so why should we be excited by the Outer Worlds 2 in 5 years? Why should we be excited by that? Why can't we? It behooves me to be excited by something that's going to come soon. Like, we know Insomniac Games is staffing up to do Spider-Man 2 and probably have already started it, been doing it for over a year and a half now. Now that the engine is done and that world is there, you can probably get that game out in, 2.5, 3 years. Okay? Just like Gears of War is on a 3-year cycle now, you can get the Spider-Man game out in a few years. And I feel like we'll probably see one in 2021 or 2022. That's something to get excited about. Why? You know what I mean? I'm just saying, like, there's reasons to be legitimately excited about PlayStation and what they're doing. There's yet to be any kind of hype around any games because, and I've said this multiple times, where there's smoke, there's fire. A voice actress leaked Horizon Zero Dawn 2, said it's going to be better than the first, right? Guerrilla Games, they're working on Horizon Zero Dawn 2 and a first-person shooter because that leaked as well. I'm just saying, we know that there's games coming on the PlayStation 5 because this stuff comes out. On the Xbox side, the only game that's been leaked was a Fable game that leaked a couple years ago, and they haven't even officially announced that. So where there's no smoke, there's no fire. I'm not saying that there's no games ever going to come, but I just got to say, In Exile, Compulsion Games, Undead Labs, Ninja Theory, Double Fine Studios, those 5 studios in particular, they can't touch Insomniac Day. If they combined into one super studio, they couldn't touch what Insomniac Studios does. You might say Obsidian is good. I'll put them as a AAA studio for sure, but I don't think they're on the same level as Insomniac. Heck no. And Playground Games has only done racing games, and it remains to be seen if they can do anything outside of that genre. So they're unproven. I like them as a studio, and they do great racing games. But can they do an open world RPG? I don't know. We won't know until we see something or, get to play it. So comparing these studios is completely pointless because most of the ones that Microsoft pick up are these AA studios that were in financial ruin. Okay? Even Ninja Theory was having problems keeping the lights on. So to compare them is completely different. Insomniac has never had a problem keeping their lights on and keeping employees and putting out their games on time. Okay? Like, people have to understand that. It really just comes down to what these kind of studios, what they want to do and what they're doing. And guess what? Sony gets it, man. Insomniac was a heck of a pickup. And sometimes you just got to sit back and go, wow. They get it. They really get it. And I feel like that's what is going on, with Insomniac and Sony, right? Like, Sony understands that gamers want great exclusives. Insomniac does great exclusives. It's a great marriage there. Phil Spencer, does he ever even say the word exclusive anymore? Does he say AAA games? No, he doesn't even say it. all he does is like BS people and continually like put you off on why you shouldn't be expecting them to show games. Okay, so yeah, that's maybe Crap's pissed off a little bit, but you know that's just how it's gonna be. Okay, just have to be honest about that. So. Anybody got some questions in there? Hey, please hit the like button. Let's get up at over 200 likes. I would appreciate it. Ninja Theory and Obsidian were crowdfunding games before being bought. Mog Wii, exactly. When you're and so was In Exile, and so was Double Fine. So yeah. And so was Compulsion Games. So that tells you everything you need to know about those studios that Microsoft bought. Okay. Let's see. Did you call Guerrilla Games AAA before Horizon Zero Dawn? Hell no, they were a sorry developer. Dude, they were a AAA studio. I don't like Killzone Shadowfall was a terrible game, but it's a beautiful game. It's a AAA game, right? Like Killzone 2 was pretty good. Killzone 3 took a step back. Killzone Shadowfall sucked. Horizon Zero Dawn is AAA all the way. Like that game is better looking than anything on the Xbox One X, hands down. Better looking than anything. Billy Yakura says 3 years for Spider-Man. How long for Spider-Man 2? Now they got the assets. That's what I'm saying. Why can't they announce? They can announce that this upcoming next E3 2020. Why wouldn't they bring out Sam Lake and Remedy and talk about these games that they're working on? I think that's what we're talking about. Like you have to look at the facts, right? It's not fear-mongering to look at the facts and do an educated guess. If hypothesizing is fear-mongering, then all the scientists in the world are fear-mongers. Right, because a lot of times you have to come to a conclusion and a well drawn out hypothesis, and that's just how it is. You know what I mean? Like people that are trying to pull that fearmonger card, they don't know what they're talking about. Do you think Sony buy From Software and CD Projekt Red? I don't think nobody's going to buy CD Projekt Red. From Software, that would be a huge pickup, but I don't know. It's not Phil Spencer, you bellend. It's Satya Nadella. No, Phil Spencer was the one that came to him with this plan, right? This was a Phil Spencer plan all along. I do think that it really has to go down to him. Worrywart says, Killzone saved games, AAA all the way, line Crackdown. Worrywart, you're so full of it, man. Crackdown is the worst game ever, and Killzone didn't save anything. We might get a new one. We definitely might get a new one. Plus, PS5 is going to be incredibly powerful. It's going to have a lot of great games, and we don't know really what we're going to have. I mean, the Scarlet is going to definitely be a huge game or a huge platform that's going to be powerful. But the games, the content is going to be really what we don't know. And so far, there's not a lot that we know about what's going into that. People go, well, they have studios, studios make games. They do, and we're going to get more Forza and more Halo and more Gears of War for sure, and Minecraft will be on it. You can bet your bottom dollar. But outside of that, we don't really know. And I think that's the thing that worries people the most. Like, we need to see some kind of roadmap, and I think that that's something that Microsoft doesn't get. They don't understand. Rohit says, Crap, you don't have to read all the insults thrown at you, man. Listen, I am known as the albino rhino, okay? So if you guys don't know, I've been doing this for a long time. Not as long as some people, but I've been doing this stuff for a long time, and I've been called every name under the book. In fact, some of the people that hated me the most now talk to me every day, and they're friends with me. So I don't take it seriously. If the Xbox fans, if Xbox starts doing good and I'm covering Xbox legitly and they're doing good, I'm sure some of these Xbox dudes will be like, hey, man, I'm sorry, Crap, but, I was just really upset because you were right and you were really driving home some points and it pissed me off, right? Like, I can imagine that that's going to be some of what I get in the future. And I'm fine with it, man. If people want to make fun of me and call me fat or whatever, like, it doesn't really matter to me. It's just the internet. It's just video games. At the end of the day, I just feel like people get in their feelings about this stuff. Just simply because a lot of what I say is true. JD Gamer says, look, here's the thing. I'd rather play a good working and looking AA game versus a bad AAA game, and that's why I like Ori and not Fallout 76 or Killzone. Well, listen, Ori is a fine game, but it's certainly not an exclusive anymore. And, I'm just saying. Matty B says, Worrywart, bring back Coffee Time Confessions. I remember that. I also remember when when he used to do the Spider-Man 2 videos. Like, he had some really funny stuff. And yeah, I guess it got a little bit like out of hand with what people would talk about or whatever. What games do you think the PS5 will launch with? I like this question. I actually don't think the PS5 is going to launch with huge. I think it's going to launch with the new Gran Turismo game. I think it's going to launch with Ghost of Tsushima as a cross-gen title, and I think it might launch with Guerrilla Games' new shooter or whatever. It might be a Killzone reboot or something. I don't know, but yeah, it might launch with that. So but I think that they're going to show off a lot of new stuff at E3 either way, right? I think they're going to show off like God of War or Spider-Man or something, right? So there's going to be stuff to get people excited about the PlayStation 5. My question is, does Phil Spencer have the guts to show off something that's more than a year away for Xbox Scarlet? Like, he's going to have to get out of that mentality to get out of his own head. He's going to have to be able to sort of go, oh, well, I believe that, I believe that people will be okay with seeing our developers are going to be able to get these games out, even if we show them, even if we show them 2 years out or 2.5 years out, that you have enough faith that those games are still going to come out. And I think that's where Sony and Microsoft differ, where Phil Spencer is very gun-shy and very plays things close to the chest. I feel like Sony themselves are, the kind of the opposite. They believe very much in their developers. They're going to show something, they're going to release it, and it's going to get people excited and hyped up for what they're doing. And I think that's the big difference between both of these studios and both these type of mentalities. Like Sony totally, in my opinion, invalidated every studio purchase that Microsoft made with the Insomniac purchase. And I feel like they're saving possibly the Remedy one, if that happens again, rumor. They're possibly saving that one for next E3 because it makes a lot of sense. That's a thumb in Microsoft's eye. You announce Alan Wake 2 on your stage with a new studio that you just acquired that's known for Xbox exclusives. That, to me, is exactly how you win, and that's how you get people hyped up for what you're doing, because they fit much better, in my opinion, with what Sony does, the single-player aspect and that kind of stuff. They fit much better with that. So, as far as I'm concerned, it makes a lot more sense for them to work with Sony. I feel like Sony fans are going to really embrace what Remedy can do. They're a talented studio. They tell really good stories. They've got really good gameplay. I just feel like Xbox fans never really appreciated them or never really, supported them by buying their content and buying their games and stuff like that. So, we'll have to see how that works out at the end of the day. But I do believe that it's going to happen, and there's plenty of evidence pointing back to this. Back to February, March of this year, same time that Sony said they were looking to expand their studios, and the same time that we started seeing some of these rumors for Insomniac Games as well. So where there's smoke, there's fire, and I believe you're not going to send Yoshida over there to visit with them just based on a marketing deal for Control, right? Like, that's not going to happen. Like, you're not going to let Naughty Dog, you're not going to let Remedy into Naughty Dog to explore if if there's not something going on there. Like, Microsoft's not going to let, Sony Studios inside 343. It's just not going to happen, unless there's something cooking there. So you have to look at it from that kind of perspective, and I believe that's why that's kind of going on. You know what I mean? Hey, oh, wow, we got a lot of people out here for a random Tuesday. Nice to see. Can we get to 200 likes? I would appreciate it. True Gamer says, yo, been a while since I watched you live. I appreciate it. I'm something Nop says Alan Wake Remastered and Alan Wake 2 E3 2020. That would be huge. What if they announced Alan Wake Remastered and then also announced Alan Wake 2 at the same time on Sony's stage? That would be huge. That would be huge. Like, holy crap. Imagine that. And I just think that that's something that Sony would do, because they definitely know how to get people excited. You've got to get people excited about your platform. If you can't get people excited for your platform, you're doing it wrong. We've got to get people really, really excited about what's going on and what's going on in the future with Xbox. Like, that, to me, is exactly why Microsoft kind of fails. Look, they can't even get people excited about their games that are coming out, let alone, a new console. For me personally, like, I'm not excited by almost anything that Microsoft is talking about lately. Just, it doesn't really matter. They just do a piss poor job of kind of getting any kind of excitement going, and maybe one day that'll change. Maybe they are just waiting for that quote-unquote next gen. But why do you downplay the next gen altogether in the first place then? It doesn't make sense to me. So yeah, hopefully we can see some of that that oomph next gen from Microsoft, but we haven't seen it this gen so far. Warren says, if you were at Microsoft right now, which studio would you buy to appease Xbox fans disappointed by Sony buying Insomniac? I would go out of my way. I would put a blank check on CD Projekt Red's table and say, fill it in. You're ours. Witcher 4, exclusive to Xbox. Cyberpunk, exclusive to Xbox, right? Whatever other platform it was on, we're canceling that. It's exclusive to Xbox. That's what I would do. But Microsoft won't do that. Again, thanks to whoever pointed that out. I forget who it was. The 5 of the Microsoft studios that they bought were literally crowdfunding games. They couldn't keep the lights on. Insomniac Games is coming off the best-selling game they've ever had, the biggest critical hit they've ever had. Sony bought them at a high point. Microsoft bought all their studios at a low point. So that kind of tells you who takes gaming more seriously. Microsoft bought a bunch of B studios for the most part that can fill out Game Pass, and Sony went out there and bought a big studio that delivers a AAA Game of the Year contenders every time they release something. So yeah, there's quite a difference there between Microsoft and what Sony's offering, and I see more and more people sort of coming around to that. Not that I would tell you what you should buy or what you shouldn't buy. I'm just saying, in my opinion, it's pretty plain to see that Sony gets it a little bit more than Microsoft. And at the end of the day, I feel like gamers are going to resonate with what Sony wants to do a lot more as well. So just, again, my opinion, I enjoy doing these streams. I really appreciate you guys. I'm going to answer some more questions. I don't want to stay too long, Let's see. Hellbeast says, I'd buy an Xbox if Witcher 4 was exclusive. Imagine that, folks. You put a quality game on your box and you can't get it on another box, and people buy your box. Like, mind blown, right? Mind blown. Sony got an all-star. Microsoft got the guys on the bench. Exactly. Microsoft wants their games on everything, even on Grandpa's hearing aid. Agreed 100%. JD Gamer says, it has been said that Xbox Game Studios wants 20 studios by 2020. So with 5 more to go, what 5 studios do you think Microsoft are going to pick up in the next 18 months? I have heard that IO Interactive is on that list. So I would say maybe IO Interactive. And I can't imagine Microsoft picking up big studios anymore. So, I'm not really sure. Microsoft buying studios. I'm not really sure exactly who else would they. They've said that they maybe want to buy a Japanese studio. I don't know. People say maybe they should buy Ready at Dawn. I'm not sure. If I were Microsoft, I would open 2 new studios, buy a Japanese studio, maybe get like a Ready at Dawn and another big studio. I don't know. For me, that would make a lot of sense. But the fact that Microsoft kind of, they're a little bit weird with what they're doing. Witcher can be boring, dual purpose, but it's not terribly bad. It's actually one of the better games of this generation. Hey, let's get to 200 likes. We're very close. Do you think Sony buying Insomniac puts more pressure on the initiative to deliver? Well, we'll know in 2025. Primitive Meat says, Crap is a no Kool-Aid, no coddle type of guy who calls out what needs to be called out. Much respect. Listen, that's exactly it. People that think that you do it for views or whatever, my stuff tanks, man. People unfollow me, people unsub me. It just is what it is. I'd rather be honest about this stuff than build people up. There's this wannabe insider who leaks stuff, and he's always pro Xbox. You guys might follow him or know him on Twitter. Everything is a megaton to him. It makes me embarrassed because I'm not sure if I was that annoying, but it almost makes me embarrassed for him because he's like, oh, well, no reason to panic over this because Microsoft's got these great studios, blah, blah, blah. And it's it'd be nice and refreshing for some of these guys that are calling me fearmonger and all this kind of stuff to just legitly sit down and tell their audience, you know what? We probably won't see any games from these studios till 2023, 2024, 2025. You know, just that's just how it's going to be. They're locked into these contracts, making multiplats. They're not going to have anything exclusive for us for many years to come. You're going to be stuck with Gears of War, Forza Motorsport, Forza Horizon, and Halo. And then eventually we'll get some stuff, and we don't know if it's good or bad. A lot of it's going to be AA, but you don't see people do that. They don't break it down like that. They're just like, we don't know. Game studios make games. They're going to be great. You know, they got all Microsoft's money. You know, well, listen, Halo has always had Microsoft's money. That didn't help the last one be good. Gears of War 4 had Microsoft's money, and that was kind of average. You know, like, just because you have money doesn't mean you're going to be great. Like, that's the thing that I would kind of stress to Microsoft. Greg E3 says Crapgamer is doing this because he sees something wrong. So do I. Be nice if Microsoft actually made a Game of the Year type. Yeah, you know what's funny? Now, mark this down, because I think Gears of War 5 is going to get good Metacritic score, probably in the mid-80s somewhere, maybe even high 80s. But all the people that say Metacritic doesn't matter and awards don't matter are going to jump for joy if that game wins some awards and gets a high Metacritic score. So don't tell me I'm a BSer and a flip-flopper when the entire community is like that, right? Right now, Metacritic doesn't matter. It's hashtag fun. Awards don't matter. It's hashtag fun. But as soon as an Xbox game wins an award, gets a high Metacritic score, then all of a sudden those things matter very, very much to them. Just like Forza Horizon, right? Like, once that hit a 90-something Metacritic, people loved Metacritic again, and it was great, and it was winning awards, and people were happy about that. So you can't sit there and go, oh, well, awards don't matter, high Metacritic doesn't matter. Of course they matter. Of course they matter. Dual Purpose says Xbot 448 was flipping out over a cheesy gun once again that makes no sense, but you could shoot and kill people through the walls and Crackdown 3 come to. I don't know, man. Xbot's a good dude. Like, he is super Xbox fan for sure, but you know, he really loves his Xbox for sure. You know what I mean? Just, he really does, and I don't blame. You know, I'm not gonna fault the guy. You know, I'm absolutely not gonna fault the guy. Hey Maddie, have fun at Gamescom, man. That's gonna be great. JD Gamer says, here's my list. Ready at Dawn, Iowa Interactive, Crytek, From Software, and Bluepoint. Those are bigger ones, with Moon Studio, Studio MDHR, and Adventure Level 5 Asobo being picked up. Well, yeah, those aren't nothing, but again, those aren't nearly on the level of, say, an Insomniac Games. Hey, we are two likes away from 200 likes. Please like the video. We are very close to getting to that point. I would appreciate it. It would definitely mean a lot to me. You guys have been completely awesome and super supportive, and I'm very thankful for that. Insomniac Games, it's huge. Hey, crap! There is a new article. Microsoft has no plans to release more Xbox exclusives on PS4 or Nintendo Switch. Oh, Hellspawn, can you maybe DM me that on Twitter? I would love to see that, if you wouldn't mind. Hold on, if I'm not following you, I'll follow you, and then you can go ahead and DM me that now. I appreciate it. Yeah, you know, I'm super excited to see what these companies can do. Yeah, we might get a The Last of Us 2 release date next month. That would be awesome. I'm very excited by that as well. I'm not jumping into the next generation. I'm going to get a PS5, but simply because VR and all that kind of stuff. Dude, Crytek, though, when was they didn't even make a game this entire generation. It's a shooter. They're known for Crysis, but they didn't release one this entire generation. They've actually haven't released much. They've had a lot of financial problems, so that does fit in with Microsoft's mantra. Do you think Microsoft will have any Game of the Year contenders? Last year, Sony had both God of War and Spider-Man nominated, but Microsoft had nothing. Microsoft never has any Game of the Year contenders this generation. Like, they don't have the great games there. You know, it's just one of those things where they haven't had a lot of great games, and that's just going to be how it is. You know, people, you have to understand, like, games take time, and I get that it takes time, but you can announce something in the meantime. But I hope that they have some great stuff. I would hope so anyway. So let's hope and keep our fingers crossed, and maybe Microsoft will be able to pull something out sooner rather than later. But I keep my fingers crossed. I'm not totally against Microsoft, you guys. I'm not. So I want them to do good, because you need that competition. You need the competition to sort of be there for everybody. You know, that's what we need to see. Hopefully we can see that in the future, and hopefully there's that competition between these two companies. That's what I want more than anything. So Microsoft tried putting Master Chief Collection on PlayStation, but Sony said no. That's right, Sony said no because Microsoft wants the metrics. They want to implement like an Xbox Live on PlayStation. That's the thing that keeps Xbox games off of PlayStation, in my opinion, is because Microsoft wants to count those users in their monthly metrics, and Sony doesn't want that. So Crap says Crytek are making VR games. I've heard that. So Neil Smith says I don't have anything crapping on Xbox. I'm proud of you. Listen, I try to adjust my stuff. This isn't like the question mark is in there. Hopefully it's easy to say. I change my stuff around a little bit. Hopefully it's people don't mind the titles too much now. I'm trying to do a little bit less clickbaity stuff, but more news oriented stuff. But I like to have fun and I like to do these type of things. So hopefully you guys are enjoying that and the content, and like and share and subscribe. Hit the bell, because Lord knows YouTube doesn't like to send out a lot of stuff sometimes when it comes to my content. So I would appreciate it if you all could do that. I'll be back. Don't worry. Xbox Nation tomorrow night. Should be some fun. Hold on. Warren says, if Microsoft goes third party, do you see anybody else entering the console market? No. It's too late to enter the console market. That's why Stadia is doing what they're doing. Why are you laughing? I want games, and I'm sorry I don't want them. Had games, God of War, I thought Zero Dawn was okay. I really like Bloodborne or Uncharted 4. Well, I mean, listen, I hope that Microsoft can achieve those type of games on that level. I hope so anyway. So, we'll have to see how that works out. I don't know if I truly believe that they can accomplish that, though. With that, I'm going to take off for the day, man. You guys have a great time. Tomorrow night, Xbox Nation. Until then, we'll catch you later. Have a great day. Thank you so much for watching. Rack 'em up.